Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Hey, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville.
I'm Johnny Scoville.
My older brother, my much older brother. Listen, before we get rolling, can we get a 5x5? Can somebody tell us that the audio and video is, I'll tell you what, man, I've gone like 6-7 minutes into one of these.
I know. I've watched a couple of them.
Tearing away.
I texted you on one of them, like, dude, nobody can hear you.
You did. That one wasn't
I haven't
actually
seen
my
a
fault
5x5 yet.
No, you know what? We're about a 25-second delay, though. So
all right.
7th will pop up probably first. He's really quick on that. We'll see if I'm
got
right.
5x5s all the
There we go.
Charlie and Mary.
There we go. Charlie Newton.
All right.
Yeah, solid. All right, Christopher Cooper, good to see you, bud. So I'm turning over the reins of the lifeboat. Probably the bad metaphor. Turning over the
the stalk,
the thing
there
that turns the boat, the rudder wheel. And we're going to do an interview. Don't know what he's going to ask. This was actually my older brother's idea, seeing as I interview a lot of people and I don't do a lot of them. We're going to
and I'm interviewed a lot, and I don't give a lot of them, so this is going to be fun.
Well, all right then.
So here's what I got. I've got some questions that I've got. He doesn't know. I don't know which order I'm going to ask them. Now, we'll tell you that he and I are expecting a wickedly important phone call. It's not going to derail the video, but I may have to say I'll call you in 30 minutes. So if that happens, please understand.
All right.
Are you ready?
I am.
All right. So kind of an interesting one to start.
All right.
Your opinion on this. Weed, is it a gateway drug? Because you hear so much.
You know what? This is one of those questions that if you had asked me this a long time ago, I may have answered it a little bit differently. Everything, is a gateway drug. The first thing that you experiment with is a gateway to everything else. However, I think that in today's world, there are more kids that are trying pills out of the medicine chest than they are weed. When we were kids, drugs were so taboo. You know what I mean? Like there was small little cliques of people that talked about it. And, there were things like Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, right? There was a couple of drug films, but it was nothing like it is today. Like today, a kid, he can go into mom's medicine chest and type whatever's on the pill and it'll tell him what it is.
And I think 20 years ago, medicine chests around the country looked a lot different.
Oh, no question. And sadly, that leads to the habit of more pills. And right now, that's a really deadly thing.
So would you say it is, or what do you think?
I think that if it's the first drug you try, it's a gateway drug. There are people who smoke pot and never move off of it. I think that they're probably not in the 3.5% of society that has a problem with addiction.
We're going to go to that next. Okay. Hang on a minute.
You got pages.
I know I do. Wow. Actually, I do. Hang on a second. I had a good one that dovetails perfectly what you just said.
There'll be no dovetailing. I was told.
Where is it? The bottom line is this: disease. Is it a disease or not? Because some people, it's such a dividing issue, and to me, it seems like it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But I understand why it is. I understand both sides of the argument. But tell me about that?
It is, and you know what? I'll catch flack and I'll get some people that email me on this. Here's what it boils down to. A disease can be quantified, and it's done in there are a series of things that you have to check each box. And for the longest time, it checked every box except, is there a test? And I don't mean, well, the guy gets loaded every day of the week and he's been arrested 5 times. Those are symptoms, right? But they're not a test. And we just didn't have the equipment up until recently. But there are brain scans that you can do. And whether that person has ever gotten high or not, you can still take a look at the brain and see that there is one section of the brain that fires way more than it's supposed to. And there is one section of the brain that is way below what is normal. And that is in every person that has a drug use disorder.
And then when you have society like, oh, he's just just insert whatever adjective you want to.
Well, they get really angry when you say disease because they want you to pay,
suffer.
and you can own it and still have it be a disease because it's a disease of choice. I've said it a lot, and I won't pick it on Seventh Son because he has. I think the last time he said don't pick on diabetes, but you know what I'm saying,
right?
It's the only drug that comes with a hate label. I mean, the only disease rather that comes with a hate label.
And this wasn't on my list. We've seen it change, obviously, but do you think we're ever going to get to a day where that's widely accepted? Where there'll always be a foothold of people that that are sticking to their guns, saying it's all on you.
That's really an interesting question. I would like to believe that we're going to get to a day where it's like any other illness, because if we ever get to that point, people won't be 10 to 15 years into their addiction before they reach out for help. The first time that somebody realizes they're out of help, if there's not that stigma attached to it of, boy, you're a loser and, you have no self-control and all of the things that come along with that, the hate,
right?
Then I think that a lot of people will get help quicker. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime. I would like to believe that it's going to happen, though.
It would be nice if someday we look back and just said, can you believe how they treated addicts? That would be,
I think that day is coming. Whether or not we're around for it, I do believe that day is coming.
We're definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. Now, you're my brother, so I've known you since Jump Street. I never changed your diaper, though. I never did, and they never made me.
That's probably a good thing.
But here's the deal. You've changed your stance on the legalization of drugs. So I have a couple questions. What is your stance currently? Are you for a partial legalization, total legalization, decriminalization? What do you think?
And this is going to be a long answer, and I apologize, but
right.
Decriminalization is, I think, one of the worst things that you can do. And it sounds great on paper. It makes a lot of sense. We're not going to arrest people who have less than an ounce. We're not going to arrest people that have less than a quarter ounce. The only way that drug dealer gets busted in our country is somebody gets caught with a quarter ounce. And then they decide they don't want to go to prison for a year. So they tell on the drug dealer. And then the drug dealer tells on the drug dealer. And that's sort of how things have always gone. When you decriminalize, but you don't do anything about the suppliers, they literally come to town. So the places in the country that have already done it, and we have a couple, right? It's been done in Oregon. It's been done in Washington State. And they have tracked people that literally said, yeah, I'm leaving. We're going there because you can sell drugs all day long and no one's ever going to turn you in. And that's a problem. So in the beginning, I thought that the concept of tapping out, right, and throwing your hands up and saying, screw it, legalize everything, I thought was the worst idea in the world. But currently, people are dying. And it's because
like Kensington kind of shakes you and like something drastic has to be done.
Well, and it's not just that there's drugs out there that people are doing and they're overdosing. This is without a shadow of a doubt an attack. And we have to come to grips with the fact that we are under attack and do something for our people. And how do you do that? Well, you could put the cartels out of business. It would require saying absolutely across the board, we are going to legalize the entire shooting match. And it's going to be, you can only get it at such and such a place so that the black market gets completely eliminated. And in doing so, you could control the strength of what, ended up in the hands of the end user. And something, no matter what you do, no matter how much they like to say, drug use is going to go through the roof and everybody's going to be an addict. 3.5% of the people that decide to do any one of those drugs are going to become addicted. Right. That number's never changed. It doesn't go up. It doesn't go down with laws or anything else. It's 3.5. It's 3.5. And they've been saying for years, oh, this is going this is going to make addiction skyrocket. It doesn't.
I want your take on this. I've seen a few articles recently saying that in areas where they've decriminalized it, the black market is thriving. And I'm not as knowledgeable in the areas you are, but I seem to have a problem with that. I don't believe that is a fact.
I don't either. I think what happens is this is a hot button issue with a lot of people in politics. And there's a big contingency that would like to say this was a mistake. This whole legalization thing was an error, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen anywhere else. And we've got to repeal it and all of that. So if they can catch someone who comes across the border to buy 10 pounds, right, which I'm sure happens, right? But I don't think it's an epidemic. But if you can get 3 or 4 arrests, you're going to come out and say, look at how many people are cruising across the border. I don't believe it for a second. I don't think that the black market is thriving. If anything, I think it would be the other way around.
It's a political ploy.
Yeah, I think it's a political tool. That's my opinion on that. All
right. Now, we talked a little bit about decriminalization or legalization. What do you see happening? Do you think that's going to happen? Almost like something drastic has to be done.
This is another one where 5 or 10 years ago, I would have said there is no chance in hell that that's going to happen.
Right.
But something has to. We got 44 million doses of fentanyl the other day that in a raid that we've been making. We're working with the Mexican government. 44 million tabs, and in one bust. So you start thinking about just how much of this crap is coming across the border. Something's got to be done. And everybody is disgusted by the idea of safe injection sites or anything.
It seems like they're waving the white flag and giving up. I think that's the concern.
And I get that. I really do. If you look at other countries that have adopted this model and just said, we're just going to make everything across the board legal. If the only thing that scares the hell out of me is someone has to regulate it, and our government has never done anything right.
If you look at the track record with healthcare and anything else they've regulated, post office, perfect example. Their track record is horrific. So knowing that they're the ones that would make adjustments and regulate it,
that's frightening. And for me, that's the stumbling block. Do I think it'll happen? I think we're going to see some changes in drug laws. The rest of the world thinks we're barbaric with how we treat people who are addicted to drugs. It's never been a war on drugs. It's always been a war on drug users. The people that end up incarcerated are not, cartel members, and they're not people who are selling, 500 pounds of product. They're people that, that are selling dope on the street to try to stay high themselves. And it's the reason that we find ourselves where we are today. We've never made a dent in the drug war.
Well, let's just talk about that. You're leading me into the next question. I didn't know what order I was going to, and the way he's talking is just totally leading me into the next question. The federal system. Do you see anybody getting better in the federal system, or is it just literally a joke?
You mean
because
incarcerated?
It's college. It's crime college. It's crime university. So, we like to think that when you go there, there's classes and there are people working with you, and like there's a queue that works for the system that's helping people.
Right. So when you get sentenced in the federal system, and it doesn't even matter what you're getting sentenced for, you do what's called a PSI, which is a pre-sentence investigation. And they tear into your past. They call ex-girlfriends. They do all kinds of stuff. It's just horrendous. And when it's all said and done, they come back and they say, this guy's problem is drugs, right? He's addicted to opiates. He does. And people who are your friends tell them how much dope you're doing every day. And so they say, you have to do the the residential drug program, RDAP. And they order you to take that. The judge puts it into your sentencing. And the judge puts it into everyone's sentencing, literally. But there's probably room for maybe 8 to 10% of the people that go to prison that can actually get into that program. And it's another one of those things that looks great for the
outside.
public.
It sounds good. Makes everybody feel good on the outside.
And if you research it, like I got sent to the special management unit. And before I went, the woman I was with at the time pulled all of the material on it, right, off of the internet and mailed it to me. And it said, you're going to be locked down 23 hours a day, but they're going to pull you out of your cell, each day. And they're going to take gang members from opposite gangs. They're going to put them in the same room, and they're going to work on. We never left that cell once. There was not any education, everything, but it got funded.
Sure, that's how it got funded.
They're taking all kinds of money to supposedly rehabilitate people. And the code, the national code for for incarceration says that they're supposed to protect society from us, right? They're supposed to punish us for the things that we've done, right? To keep us from doing it again as a deterrent. And they're supposed to rehabilitate,
educate, and rehabilitate.
And they just do not do any of that at all. If you're going to do it, and there are people who do, but if you're going to do it, you're going to do it yourself. And, it could be done so much better. It really could, but they have no foresight.
I don't know the truth of it, but I suspect that a lot of the contraband that's coming in is coming in through guards.
Depending on the places that I was at. In some places, it was astounding how much.
Because if that's where it's coming in, I mean, what do they say? It's such a racket.
When I went to get I was in a yard in California, and a federal yard. And when I went to get my clothing, the woman that was running, she's a corrections officer, but she runs the laundry, right? And I walked in, and I swear to you, this woman was like this.
Nodding out.
Wow. I mean, just nodded straight out. And I remember walking out and saying to one of the guys, I said, you should see the woman in laundry. And everybody on the yard was like, oh, yeah, she's one of us. You know what I mean? Like that.
And she works for them.
She was bringing in all kinds of stuff. But that was the only place I've ever been where it was almost as cheap in there as it was on the street. Like it was bizarre. That yard was just ridiculous.
Well, no, some of the waste, if you look at, you shared a story, I don't know if you shared it on the boat, of ovens just being literally thrown out. Did you ever share that story on the boat?
I may or I may not have.
But just gives you an idea of the waste. It's just there's money sitting around, and it could be used on programs. It could be used to really make changes. And instead, they're throwing out good equipment just because they have to spend money on new equipment.
They have to blow their budget by the end of the fiscal year or the following year.
Because I know the story. I don't know if you share it. Kind of explain it.
So yeah, I was working as a secretary in the kitchen, and what that meant was I ordered a lot of the food. In fact, I ordered all the food, and there was a boss that I answered to, but he would give you a list of, the meals that were coming, and you would call and write out all of the purchase orders and all of that. And as we started getting closer to the end of the year, he said, you got to get some dollies and remove the ovens. And these ovens are made for 40 years. They're like huge industrial ovens. And they weren't
Blodgett by chance, were they?
I don't remember, but they were 3 or 4 years old. And we were taking them out to bring in brand
These are
new
industrial jobs.
These are industrial jobs. And they're going to go and get donated to some, and there's going to be an auction.
So they could have lasted 30 years.
They could have lasted 30 years.
And they're just throwing them out, buying new ones.
And then we were taking tables out of the officers' mess and throwing them into the dumpster and buying new tables and new chairs with, captain's armrests and the whole shooting match. And then he came back and said, we still have more money. We need to do something. So we were giving 2 boxes of Pop-Tarts to every single inmate in the prison every single morning for breakfast. And we did that for like 2 weeks, which is, believe it or not, a ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able to finally blow the budget. For 2 weeks, we eliminated chicken from the menu and did beef because it was 4 times more expensive, and had to get through all of that money, because if you do, the following year, you're going to get a 15% bump.
How frustrating is it for you to see that?
At the time, I think I was probably just happy that we were eating better.
Right. Yeah.
As sad as that is, I think that, I remember
you just
being
saw
astounded.
the surface. That's just one area.
That's one department.
Right.
That's one department. And
how many times do they buy new handcuffs?
You got, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Everything else, right? There's right next door, you have CMS, which are the people that go around and fix things, and they're doing the same thing. And then next to that, you've got the
Waste.
people in recreation and whatever, they're doing the same thing.
And someplace else, you have railroad cars full of money that's just sitting there that could be used to help better lives, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah. When we allocate money to things, a lot of times it sits there for decades, because if somebody doesn't fill out the paperwork correctly, like right now, there's $30 billion for the treatment of drug addiction with fent. $30 billion. And it's as of right now, there's not a whole lot of it getting spent on anybody trying to get better.
Let's talk about fent for a minute. I think with the upcoming election, it's going to really throw a spotlight on the fentanyl problem. The only one I know, Ramaswamy, is the only one I know who's livid about it. That's his main thing. How much of a change do you think that's going to have on people catching their snap, going, we need to change this? It's going to force people. It's forcing the narrative. It's going to force the conversation. How much do you think it's going to change?
I'm happy that it's going to be discussed. I'm happy that it's going to be, if there are debates, because right now one of the people running has said he will not do any debates. But at the debates, this is going to be something that gets brought up and gets talked about, and that's great for our cause. It really is. I have a feeling that about 6 minutes after the election is over, it'll probably go back to business as usual because sadly, we are throwaways.
Okay, well, that brings up another question. It'll go back to, no matter who changes hands, it's going to go back to the usual.
Right.
Here's the question I have. If you think about the government and where we're at, I think my operating assumption is that we're compromised with, can I say the word?
Sure.
All right, we're compromised by China.
I wasn't sure what word. Yeah, that one was. I don't care.
And the cartels. And what my basis for that is the fact that it's the biggest problem fighting the country, the biggest problem, period. It's changing the lifespan in America, and that they will not acknowledge that it's a problem tells me that they're bought and sold.
Yeah.
But the question becomes, let's say that the party, it's a different party in the office.
Uh-huh.
Do you think they're just going to keep doing that? Or do you think they're going to put their foot down and say enough is enough?
You know what's funny though? Before you do that, let's see, checking how many people are, because those are the only people that are going to see this puppy. We said cartel in China and said, you know what?
Sorry.
No, I don't care. I really don't. I just think it's funny. I don't want to get too politically into this. However, if the party changes, the other party that is not in office currently is very serious about border security, and that is one of the it's one of the biggest things that you could do to put a dent in this, as opposed to, even if you just kept 42, right? Title 42.
Well, that's what my next question is
about Title 42.
Well, here's the deal: 3 days, it's done.
It
Okay.
is 3 days. Isn't it?
I know this is not a political show,
Right.
but we've got to talk about it. Let's talk about that.
3 days from now. So here's something that chaps me. The reason that they want to repeal it is because it was a T-man, right? Because, boy, you say his name, you're screwed. But it was a T-man era. It wasn't. That thing goes back to before I was born. They just took it out of the closet. You can pull it out anytime there is something going on that enables us, if there is a like a crisis like the C+ math one that we had.
Right.
So you can pull it out. He didn't draw that up. He just brought it back. And it is how we have been keeping people from just running across. And they're coming across faster than they ever have. And that is overwhelming the security at the border. And that's the reason we're losing 400 people a day. And in 3 days, it is going to be an epic.
The funny thing is, the current administration has sent down tons of soldiers on the border to kind of correct the mess that they're creating, to make it look like they give a rip. I don't understand. It's the dog and pony show.
The funny thing is, if you read that, they are not there to stop anybody from coming across the border. That is not what they're doing down there.
What's the purpose?
They're there to help process these people faster.
That's the app.
That they want to make sure that we're able to get them into this country as fast as humanly possible. That's what they're going down there to do. And you know what? This is one of those things that they have successfully made anybody that talks like I do a pariah. They make you they scream that you hate people, and they scream that you're racist and bigoted and all of that crap. And 400 people a day, right? And what's funny?
I don't believe that.
And I don't mean funny, haha, but those people that are dying are every nationality, every sexual orientation. You know what I mean? It's not like it's
getting one group.
No, it's not. It's killing everybody.
I think people would be surprised who it's killing too, because so many kids. Because back when we were kids, your gateway drug was either beer or alcohol. Today, like you said, it's going into the cabinet, going into the drug.
And they're pressing it in. They're pressing it into Ritalin, and they're pressing it into Adderall, and those are really more gateway drugs than anything else, because there are so many kids that we treat for ADHD who go to school with Ritalin, and they sell them off or they do whatever. And, if you're a kid in school and you've bought 25 Ritalin, and gone and used it, and you've bought, 25 Adderall, I mean, you're not going like this when you buy those things, right?
Right.
So if you see some more that are, counterfeit, you need a loop. You need to spend time, and you need
to be an expert. I remember Cedar saying that you were the first person to ever discuss fent with her. And this is not a girl in third grade. This is a woman. It's a young woman.
Yeah.
That to me was horrific, because you would think, and here's the problem.
And she was at ground zero. It's not like she was in, in one of the flyover states. Right. She was in Los Alamitos in California. And absolutely unbelievable. They don't do any of it. And the reason is, once again, I mean, if you come in and start talking about it, they keep lumping everything in so that you even bring up Fent, you're a racist. Like we've gotten to the point where anything that you say, they're going to start demonizing you. And it's to the point where people are afraid to talk about it. And you know what? Cancel me. You know what I mean? Like honestly, like I give a crap at this point. It needs to be said, you know, and I'm not trying to do politics. I'm really not, but it needs to be said.
Indeed. Okay, let me ask you this. What do you think the number one reason that drug addicts struggle so hard with recovery? One thing, you know, over time, it's become much more out in the open, much more public.
Right.
You know, and there's so many more people that are owning up to it. But tell me, what do you think the number one problem is?
Hate. I'm sorry, it is. It's absolutely hate. It's the fact that there is still a huge portion of the population that will never accept in their lifetime. They're not going to accept the disease concept. So there are so many people in the country, and we're in the world for that matter, who they view addicts as weak. They view addicts as you know, not having strong moral fiber and all of the ridiculous things that, you know, that people say about addicts. And what it comes down to is, you know, I was talking about this, I think it was either this morning's show or last night's show, but 70% of America say they drink. 30% say that they drink to excess. Like they get loaded. They go out for the intent to get drunk. But 3.5% are going to develop a alcohol abuse disorder. And it's always going to be that way. That number's not going to go up. That number's not going to go down because that's what percentage of the population is born with that illness.
Right.
And until the hate goes away, you know,
And
when you
it's funny,
start feeling
there's a
that
lot of
way,
hate. I hated myself.
oh, absolutely.
You know, there was so much hate, all kinds of hate going around.
And you start to call yourself the same names that society calls you. When I was talking about this, I can't remember which show it was. It was either your last night's or this morning.
It was great. It was last night's. It was great.
But, you know, there were people in the comment section writing, I even called myself a lush. And, you know, these are the kind of things that we get so accustomed to people in society treating us that way. And from their point of view, if you're one of those 30% who goes out and gets drunk, right? They drink with the intent to get drunk. They go, well, that dude's weak. I have no problem doing that. I've been getting loaded every weekend for 6 years, and now I'm just going to stop. Well, they have the ability to stop, where the 3.5 don't. And until that becomes accepted, the hate and the derision and the shame, you know,
shame.
It kills more people than than almost anything else. It's that inability to walk out and just say, I need help, and not feel like you're a leper, or not feel like you're evil, or there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? If it were any other disease, you would never say to someone that had anything else, you got cancer, you low life.
Right.
You know what the hell is wrong with you? You're not coming by my house, right? Stay away from my kids. Until society begins to accept people for who they are and become forgiving. And I understand that. Look, I did more damage to addicts than most people, because when I was using, I did so much horrendous crap that people like me cause the entire community to be viewed in a specific way. But there are a lot of people that aren't that way. You know, I talk about Alan all the time. Alan he wasn't committing any crimes. He was just working his tail off and, you know, pulling double shifts and all that to pay for his habit. I understand why society looks down their nose, because we are responsible for about 80% of the crime in the country is just, you know, people who are addicted to drugs who are stealing to support their habit.
Do you think it's 80%?
I think it might be higher, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, it's really, really high. Especially theft. You know, that's
yeah.
I mean, why do people, you know, what percentage of the country is stealing to eat? It's not, it really isn't that way. You know what I mean?
Only stealing for their habit.
People steal for their habit. That's what they steal.
Speaking of habit, we're going to talk about that. Because if you think about it, you think about how many people in America drink to excess.
Mm-hmm.
You think about people that have a food addiction, cigarettes. If you
phone,
I was about to say the phone. It seems right now like 90% of the population is addicted to something or another. And being a channel, because here's the thing, this beautiful thing about addiction is it doesn't really matter what it is, the reward center of your brain, the principle, the approach to quitting, whether it's you're pulling a slot machine or holding a bong or whatever, the principles of beating that addiction will carry across the board regardless of the substance. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just shocking. As a guy who runs a channel about sobriety, is that daunting when you think about it in those terms? Because I never think of it in terms of phone, but think of how does that make you just? I feel like the amount is just so big, it's ridiculous.
I think until society gets a handle on the fact that the phone is actually a real problem. I mean, there are parents who say, my kid spends way too much time on the phone, this and that. But if people researched this and realized that they sat in Silicon Valley and talked about the term dopamine hit was never used ever. It was not in the nomenclature of drug use or anything else until the phone. And that was coined by the guy that started Facebook. He talked about how likes, people hitting likes and people, commenting on your stuff.
Is that? Well, and that was the verbiage in the room with the door shut.
Dopamine hits.
Unbelievable.
And then our friends from the Beast from the East came out with TikTok and had taken it to a level that is, beyond comprehension. I heard someone who is in this game, someone who is pretty well versed in this game, say that it's probably closer to 9 out of 10 people at this point have some addiction in their life.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
There are some videos out there that you can watch. I think I might have even sent you one where it shows a kid the parents took the phone away, and for 3 hours, and it's not a 14-year-old. Like, this kid looks like he's 18, and there's no sound, and you're just watching him walk around the room and doing this stuff, and right next to it, juxtaposition, you're seeing a heroin addict do the exact same thing. And
let me share with you something. I ran a phone room, and I remember one day it was just getting out of hand with the cell phone use, right. And the boss called me. He goes, "You know what we're going to do, Johnny? We're going to
put him in a
take
box."
it." Yeah. So let me tell you what I did. I'm a numbers guy. I know what should be expected with the room I had. We took their phones away, put it in a box. Can I tell you how useless they were? That lasted 1 day. That lasted 1 day. In spite of the fact that they were all screwing around on their phone, they were still better with their phone. They were just almost like a work boycott. They were just like, "Look, I'm not doing it."
It's not even a work boycott. It's pitching in withdrawal is what it is.
But I'm not joking. People are like, "When is cigarette break?" I'm like, dude, I remember thinking, I'm telling you, this is 10 years ago. I remember thinking that it's very similar to somebody who has a habit.
Right.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean,
we gave up the next day, we gave them back their phones.
Yeah. First of all, there was no TikTok. I mean, I doubt, honestly, it was a conscious thing on their part. I think it's withdrawal.
Yeah.
If you're used to getting a dopamine hit, every 40 minutes or every hour and a half or whatever it is, where you're just going to get in there and then, like doing lines where you're going to go up, you're going to go down, you're going to go up, you're going to go down. You've been on plenty of flights lately. I mean, when the wheels are coming up, coming down to land, there is not one person on that airplane that is not pulling that phone out before it hits the ground, right? Firing that thing up, checking all their social media and doing all of this. I honestly have been trying to not do it, to weed out one after the other. There were things that I can't avoid because of the Lifebook.
Oh, and you're a content creator. I'm sorry, it's one of those things.
Well, and this is also a very unique kind of content. You know what I mean? Like, if I blow off the social media for the Lifeboat, I could be blowing off somebody that's reaching.
And it's
out.
a strange addiction because you can say, well, like me, for instance, you shouldn't be on YouTube 8 hours a day. I'm a content creator. I'm on YouTube hours and hours every single day.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to say, oh, well, I need to. It's almost like a cop out. You know what I mean? It's like, well, listen, I don't want to, but I'm a content creator. It's kind of how it feels. Like I'm giving lip service.
There's something to that. I mean, there's something to that. I really do dig it. Like, you've seen Heather Joy. When Heather takes a show and I can sit back and watch one, and if I do, I don't comment because I don't want to.
Right.
I just want to sort of lay in the cut. But the ability to take off for a little while is excellent. But if I hear my phone go ding, I panic. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it's an addiction of sorts, because I'll look at it and think, you know what, I'm not gonna get to that because right now I'm not working. And then, oh God, what if it's somebody that's about to relapse? And then I grab the phone. And
I'll say my addiction with the phone. I'll give it a little dose of honesty. I don't turn my phone off on airplane. I never have, ever. Never will. Listen, if for 1 second, leaving your phone on could bring a plane down, you think they'd let you on a plane? You don't let you on with a nail clipper. You think they'd let you on a plane with a phone if it was going to take the plane down? And what happens is, about a half a mile, maybe a mile before we land, my phone starts notifications everywhere. And at first, I'm telling you, back when I've never, ever turned my phone off. And I was the only guy ever that used to have the notification. People were like, what are you doing? Now,
Everybody does.
yeah, the last flight I was on coming here, I'm not joking. It sounded like we were in Vegas for about 10 minutes. It was like ding, 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 ding. People were giggling about it. No one is turning their phone off. And that to me is a sign that I got an issue with it. I don't turn, I know people who turn their phone off at night. I've never turned my phone off, and it's years old. I've never ever turned it off.
If you can,
unless I have to power it down for some reason.
I tell people, if you know what, if I didn't do what I do on the boat, and I know that may sound like a cop out, but you know the story, right? I didn't answer an email from someone that ended up taking her life. So I kind of freak out about that, and that's just kind of goes with the territory. But if I was not a content creator with the lifeboat, if I didn't do what I do, that puppy would be downstairs while I slept. I promise you. But I don't do that. In fact, it's usually in bed.
I will say this. I do turn off all notifications after 9 o'clock. So when I'm in bed, I don't hear because here's the thing. When you were at Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, emails, text messages, it sounds like you're walking through the airport in Reno here.
I bailed on Instagram. I bailed on Facebook. Like I go over and I check the safe harbor about once a week. But for me, it's just my emails and it's the boat, and I don't do anything other than that.
See, I love making
and Messenger goes off. God,
I like making videos. It doesn't feel like work. But I loathe social media. I can't stand Instagram. I don't like Facebook.
You should try the boat for a couple of weeks.
All right. Speaking about the boat, let's talk about this for a second. I had a good question here. All right. Where do you see the boat in the very near future? When I say very near, I'm talking 6 months, 8 months. And then where do you see it, say 5, 10 years from now, if you can see that far down the road? I know it's a tall order.
No, you know what?
Because I know you think about it.
Boy, I do.
It's a living being almost. It's got a life of its own at this point.
I would be really surprised if in 6 months we're not about twice as big as we are now. There are some things coming out here in the next little bit that are going to have a pretty monumental effect on the.
That should almost be something you prepare everybody for, because I'll tell you what, there's going to be a time where, in a really short period of time, the lifeboat's going to double in size or triple in size.
I've been dropping that hint pretty regularly, and this morning I was talking about Marfugel. They got hundreds of thousands of people, but the core crew are still the core crew, and that's never going to change here, and I wouldn't want it to. But that's the 6 month mark. Where do I see it in a couple of years? In a perfect world, I would like to see a show going off every hour, literally. And there are AA meetings and NA meetings all over the country where 24 hours a day there's somebody hosting a meeting, and I would love that. I think that at some point the lifeboat has the potential to do that, so that at any point during the day, if someone's feeling squirrely, they can just go
live.
And obviously, it would not be me doing 24 hours.
It would be a hard thing. I don't know. I can see you doing that. That would be so beautiful. Honestly,
I think that's the future. I think that as the boat starts to get bigger, there are going to be
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
There are already some people right now that are sort of, I'll just keep it real. There are people right now that are shooting videos and sending them to me, and I'm sort of
that's a great idea.
I'm sort of critiquing the videos and seeing if these people are comfortable to do an hour. I definitely see the future of the lifeboat being something that's 24 hours a day. I really do. I think that there's no chance that doesn't happen. I don't know how fast.
I love that.
So that when I'm gone, this is one of those things that just continues to go forever. When I'm gone, there'll always be a Scoville. I promise you.
Amen.
There'll always be a Scoville on this channel. So,
okay. So here's an interesting question. Kind of a rough one.
All right.
Looking on your life, what is your greatest regret?
Oh. It's
Sorry,
funny. No. There are days that I can think about, like, if I didn't do that.
I don't sit here and want you to look back in the review.
No. Here's the thing. When my grandmother died, I didn't go to the funeral, and the reason I didn't go to that funeral, I mean, the story, was I was leaving the country, and I was, but there was no problem at all with me hitting that and then leaving the country, but I didn't have enough dope to get through that. And that one's a regret. That's something that I stick with. The fact that in Dad's last years, I wasn't here for most of them, I regret the hell out of that. The fact that I wasn't there for Calhoun for as many years as I was in prison. Me and Cedar really didn't have a relationship then. So it was, I was shoved out of that one. That I didn't have any control over that, but I should have been there for my boy, and I
I
definitely
don't want to
should
hear
have
any
been
more
there for my
regret.
family.
Let's change
No,
it.
you know what? Here's the deal. Regrets suck, but there's two ways that you deal with regrets.
That's my next question.
There's two ways that you deal with regrets. You own them,
That was
and you visit them, and you deal with them, and you put them away, or you claim you don't have them, you forget about
it's like
them, you
tearing
hold
down
them deep
statues of
inside
the
like
past
this,
to pretend they didn't.
right? I can't tell you how often I write into the journal. You know, something will come up to my mind, and I'll start thinking about Papa Scoville, and I just write. I just stream of conscious that shit, because if you don't, and you don't let that out, anything that you hold inside is going to kill you.
Fact.
Especially if you're an addict. Anything you hold inside and you're done. So yeah, regrets suck. They really do. But the second phase to that is, you draw that line in the sand and you say, from this moment forward, the regrets are going to be things like, you know what, I wish I had bought gold when it was at X or whatever. It's never going to be something epic. It's going to be, I bought that car and it was terrible. I should have bought this, much more reliable, like those kind of regrets.
But not human beings
Nothing
being
huge. Yeah, nothing huge.
Brings me to another great question. Thank you so much. You are just leading me to the next question. I didn't know what order, and I swear to you, you're telling me the order about how you're doing these. It's beautiful. You've been wildly transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And really forthright, to the point where I know that there are relatives that have a hard time hearing some of the things you say. All right.
Boy, howdy.
I'm telling you, but how important do you think it is? And talk about regret. If you ignore it and put it in the closet, it's like tearing down statues. They should be there to remind us. We need to see the statue and say, yeah, that did happen.
Right.
How important do you think is owning your past? How important does that factor into truly living a successful, sober life? Can you live a sober life without doing that?
I can't. No, there are people out there. I can't make that decision for people. There are people for whom, coming out and doing it the way that I did it would probably not be something I would recommend to everybody. But how do you sit in this chair and keep all of that in the closet, right? Number one, someone's going to pop out and go, do you know how many banks this dude's robbed, right? Or, so when I talked to Q about this at length, and I just said to him, when I go to schools, he said, it's going to be your resume. Because I wasn't planning on doing this online. When Q and I were talking, it was going to be me going to schools. And, he said, all that criminal record and all the things you did is your resume. This is what's going to give you credibility. And it may not seem that way to you, but this is, you know what I mean? This proves that, you sort of have been there and managed to pop out the other side, which is why people are going to listen. Because let's face it, I'm not Dr. Phil. I'm not, Drew Pinsky. I'm a guy that screwed up so much that I think the real draw is, if that idiot can do it, then anybody can do it. You know what I mean? So for me,
but that's
for me, it's
so
absolutely essential. I think that everybody needs to own their past, even if it's only on that, even if it's only a matter of writing it down into the notebook.
Because when you do,
you have to
stays up here. It's trouble.
Yeah, exactly. You got to let it out, even if it's only onto a notebook. I don't know that you have to proclaim it to the entire world, but in Narcotics Anonymous or in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say that you confess it to one other person, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that if you're working any kind of a program, it's going to be something that you end up talking to people about. But that thing right there can be the one other person. I mean, journaling
helped me figure out all my issues, man.
Everything.
That's crazy.
It is the key.
And I fought you so hard about it.
Well,
you used to call me, you journaling, you idiot. What would you write to them?
I fought Q. I'm sure Q fought somebody else. I mean, it's just kind of how it works.
All right. So, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What are you in your life so far? What are you most proud of? Because here's the thing: in spite of some of the terrible things that you endured, you've done some, and you guys don't know because I've been there for a lot of it. You've done some staggering, some amazing things. Not even part of life, but what are you most proud of?
I mean, there's, you can do a lot of things in your life and you look back and you go, you know what, that was pretty cool. There was that crash when I was going home with the moose. That was a pretty cool moment. There have been some things along the way that I can look, but nothing I'm more proud of than getting sober. You know what I mean? Because heroin is a absolutely insidious drug. You know what I mean? You do know what I mean. Yeah. It gets its hooks into you. And I believed for 3 decades that I was going to die addicted to dope. Like I I had just accepted as fact that I was unable to live a life without it. Like that was just the reality of who I was. And the fact that next month I'm going to trip 8 years, I'm pretty damn proud of that. I really am. And I promise you the next year I'm going to be talking about 9 and we'll be doing a big celebration 2 years from now. If I'm still around, we'll be
Don't you
talking
find
about
that each year becomes more significant? Every time you add a year, it's like, wow, it's very, very cool. I hit 4 years for not drinking was just like, I was so stoked about that.
You know something, the first 4, I was still kind of white knuckling, you know what I mean? I really struggled with the first 4 years were really, really hard. The 5th year was that I felt like I was starting to stretch my legs a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I can't let your guard down though. I really find that, like, here's the thing. I'm scared of Vicodin.
Oh yeah.
Like I'd rather you poke me in the eye than have me, the strongest medicine I take is BC powder.
Yeah.
So,
I have not gotten this elbow fixed. Right? I can't straighten the arm out, and I've not gotten this fixed because there's just no way to get that surgery without pain meds. I'm going to try to ride that one out as long as possible because I just, I'm terrified of him. I'm terrified of him.
Which brings me another great segue, man. When you were released, if you don't mind, what was the most difficult or challenging adjustment that you had to make going from that to here, to the free world?
So when you're in prison, in any prison, but when you're in the feds, you get called convict, you get, or they just bark at you, convict, and it's just, or they just,
Constantly reinforcing,
or they scream your last name, and I literally went, and this is no joke, right? I went like 8 birthdays that not one person said, hey, happy birthday. So there's so much hate. It's like every single day you just live in this environment of hate. Like you can taste it, right? And I came out, and I just didn't come out like other people came out. I came out and I got, you with a real presence on YouTube and a really solid following of some really good people. And I came out and went from being really hated to being really loved in like a week. And it was like
surreal.
I had some real wrestling moments where it was just
like, what's happening? Like, how did this
like
happen?
It was hard to wrap your brain around, and you kind of
I
felt
remember
like at any moment,
I'm like, wait till you see it. You're gonna love this.
At any moment, the carpet's gonna get yanked out from underneath you, or something like that. And it was one of the reasons that the transparency thing. It's like everybody was so cool. I just felt really screwed up. You know what I mean? Just sort of being that guy. And like I remember on your channel where I came out one day and was just like, a lot of, because I would, if you guys never saw it, I used to do Tommy's picks, and I would pick 3 or 4 comments, and I would comment on why I was picking them and whatever the case may be. And
we're not going to get to all these questions.
Well, that's all right. There was a couple of days in a row where people were clowning on drugs, and I remember coming out and saying, you know what, I'm never going to pick these. You know what I mean? Like I don't find drugs funny, and
I remember that.
I don't, because I'm a heroin addict. And like I remember the first time writing that out and being terrified of what people were going to, how I was going to be viewed. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to lose the love. So
I shouldn't make the guy answering the questions get the front door. Mama's
that might have been, no, you know what? Just ask right now.
I have another good question here. This is another interesting one. I'll ask the question now and give him a chance to think of his answer on his walk back. What are your personal goals? Like not necessarily lifeboat. What are your personal goals? Because I know you have them.
Well, I think in the short term, I'm really looking forward to putting this town in the rearview mirror. Everywhere I look is a reminder of the life that I used to live, and
I get that.
I'm really looking forward to being somewhere where there isn't any of that. Long term, I haven't ruled out a run at the presidency. You know what I mean? And if not, I'd like an Academy Award, even if it's maybe just for writing, maybe a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know. I figure if I don't set my goals ridiculously high, then I won't hit. But yeah, I think a Nobel Peace Prize might be.
Well, I know that we were talking how you said that in a perfect world.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
In a perfect world, you'd hand the boat over
Oh man,
to Q.
you mean,
I mean,
if I had one wish?
Yeah, boy, right?
Yeah, if I had one wish, I would vacate the chair and I would give it to Q.
Boy, it'd be great to watch him do that. He's such a good guy too. We're running out of time, but I got a few more questions here I want to try to get to. The other thing I want to touch on, I remember once when you got out, I remember you saying the colors. Because everything, here's the thing. I've never been to prison, but I've been to county a few times. And everything, what you smell, what you taste, what you see, what you hear, every single sense is just one thing. And when you get out, I remember you saying just the colors. You don't see
everything
red.
is khaki.
Right.
You see khaki and gray.
So it was weird for you. I remember you saying the colors are flipping you out.
Yeah. Also, like being in a vehicle, I spent so much time on one yard that I remember when they, we were getting taken to Con Air. You go to an airport and they're going to stick you on a 727, right, or 737 or whatever. And we got in the car and started driving, and you could just watch every single dude in there go like this, right, and kind of just
Too much?
Well, you just haven't seen anything fly by. Like you take that for granted because every single day you're in a car, but you spend about 5 years or 6 years not being in a vehicle that travels at any speed, and you look out the window and see stuff go by and your stomach just starts turning.
Wow, I believe it.
And you could look around the bus or the van and tell everybody that had done 6 or 8 months, you know what I mean? Because they're looking out the window like, like a dog.
Well, another thing you said were choices, having so many choices. You didn't have any. Years ago, I was a guide for a Russian music group, Christian music group that was going up and down the coast. And one of the guy who was in charge of the group, he was the lead singer. His name was Boris. They needed some stuff, and I was the driver. I was driving around, and we went to a Walmart. And we walked into Walmart, and there was like 8 people in their group and me. 7 of them split, and Boris stood at 10 feet in the door and just stood there, and he wept.
Yeah,
the whole time because he's never been given options. And going from you have no deodorant, when you're in the commissaries, how many deodorant choices do you have? 2. All right, you walk into a store and there's 50.
I was talking about that.
It takes you an hour. It takes you an hour to decide what you want.
And that's with everything. I remember going to the halfway house, and when they were doing the intake, the guy said to me, "We allow DoorDash, and you're probably going to want to do that because the food here is just god awful. You can't eat it." This is the guy that works there, and I had no idea what DoorDash was. I really didn't. At that point, I don't watch TV, right? So I'm like, "That was DoorDash," and at first they had me in the attic. It was a huge house. It used to be a mansion. And I went up into the attic, and 3 of the guys in there were from Reno.
Oh, wow.
And one of the guys looked at me and goes, "I know who you are, bro." He's like, "I remember you from the hood." And he's like, "When's the last time you had a decent meal?" I was like, "About 8 years ago." And he called up and ordered 2 pizzas and some chicken. And I remember just
a mind bender.
Right. And then, I would one day a week, because I was saving every penny, like every penny. I was vicious about it. But once a week I would buy a DoorDash for myself. And you'd get a menu of because they have a takeout menu of 20 restaurants or whatever, and you would just stare at the thing for 45 minutes until somebody would be like, "Dude, just pick one."
I can see that.
Yeah, really, really difficult. I remember, especially if the options were something that, Chinese food or, or Mexican food, and you're going,
you don't know where to begin.
I haven't had anything in so damn long.
I get
Can I get a top ramen? You know what I mean? Where are the top ramens?
It was now I heard a rumor, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. I heard a rumor that in about, 30, 45 minutes or so from now, you're going to eat a ghost pepper.
You heard that?
I did. I heard that. It's going around. Maybe some people in the chat have heard that. I heard
that is just awful. Look at this. No. I thought maybe that would go up. I don't remember hearing that rumor. Let's be honest with you. I don't.
Well, here's the good news. I have it for you. But again, here's the deal. You'll eat a ghost pepper, and I will do the
oh yeah, you're firing the Navage.
The waterboarding. I'm a little nervous about it because I saw that video. The guy didn't work well.
No,
he coughed it up. I don't know how it went from his nose to his throat. That's what I'm concerned about. I want to stay in the nose.
If you could make that happen, it would make the pepper so much more fun.
Well, that's what I'm looking forward to. So you are going to do it.
Sure.
So guys, everybody here, go over to the lifeboat. Go over to the bus. Chase the Heat in about half hour, probably 45 minutes from now. Maybe even an hour. I'm not quite sure. But
I'd like to get something on my stomach before
I think you're going to need to. Listen, I want to thank you for letting me interview you. And
You
can I
know
say
what?
one other thing? I'm so proud of you. If I talk about it, I'm going to cry, and I don't want to, but I'm so proud of you for
Thanks,
what you're
man.
doing.
I appreciate that. I really do.
You know, if you went back 15 years and you said where you and I were, say 15 years ago, somewhere in Audi or something, and someone said 10 years from now, this is what Johnny's going to be doing, and this is what you're going to be doing, would you have swallowed that?
No.
Right? That's why I'm so proud of you. Just keep doing it. Don't stop.
No, I definitely didn't. I say this a lot on the channel. I did not see this coming, and you would not have been able to convince me. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, it was definitely not where I thought it would be.
Well, listen, we have 4 minutes. Does anybody have any questions you want to ask that I didn't ask that you think would be good? I really appreciate you answering those questions. Some of them weren't easy. You know, I didn't want to.
No,
I didn't want to give you just softball kind of
Right.
questions. You know, be like,
What's your favorite ice cream?
right? That's the hardest questions from your brother. But if anybody has any questions that I haven't asked them, you know, I did see, you know, fentanyl. Chris Cooper, say hi to your boys, by the way. Christopher Cooper says fentanyl is killing a lot of my American brothers and sisters. I saw, and I sent you the headline.
Yeah,
In Mexico,
it's unbelievable.
They are testing fentanyl on prisoners.
They are.
But they're
That
going
is-
after drug addicts. They aren't doing it with people. They want people that have a habit. That's what they're trying to figure out.
Is that not just staggering to you?
It's unbelievable. It really is. I don't see any new questions from anybody.
Let's
But hold on, the black market on marijuana versus legal marijuana, it's at its highest point in 10 years in California. Versus legal marijuana. Wow, that's crazy.
I'd be really curious to know where those statistics, and I'm not doubting you. I just would be super interested in looking them up. That would be fascinating to me.
Because here's the thing: all the people that
Well-
sell in the black market, you know where they're getting their weed from?
Well, here's the thing with California, because this is a very interesting state to talk about. The cartels used to grow massive amounts of weed in Mexico and smuggle it across the border. Now the cartels have gone across the border
Growing it here.
and they're growing. They set up the same grower operations the exact same way, and they're doing it on public land in California. So that kind of may be an anomaly because of how much the cartels are growing dope in that state. I mean, that's really going to have an effect. You know, granted, stuff is legal, but there are still so many states in the U.S. where stuff is not legal, and California is supplying a whole hell of a lot of that.
Really?
And it's just, I mean, think about it. You remove the smuggle,
Right.
We just grow the stuff right in
Big
California.
step out of the way.
Yeah, that's the toughest part of the whole procedure, I think.
Well, I'll stay on the boat. You know, I'll be there every night.
All right.
And just keep doing what you're doing. But I appreciate you answering those questions.
I promise you.
My questions were a lot harder on you than yours were on me when you interviewed me.
The next time, I'm
What makes you think?
slapping
What makes you think
I'm
there'll be a next
slapping
time?
you all over the boat the next time we do this. You know.
All right.
Thanks,
So,
everybody.
Yeah, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys learned something new. Maybe.
Hey,
Uh-oh.
where did she go?
She was just there a minute ago.
She literally was in the basket 2 seconds ago. You know, you look up for 1 second.
Wow.
Well, there shall be no cat in the basket. I think she probably thought, you know, Mama Scoville was going to do tuna or something because she is gone. All righty, peeps. I am Tommy Scoville, and this is my big brother.
I'm Johnny.
Thank you for tuning in. God bless. The